The first time someone called the cops on me for standing on my own land, I thought it was a prank. The second time I realized it wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a strategy. And by the third time, I understood something ugly about people. If they can't take what's yours outright, some of them will try to erase you until it looks like it was never yours to begin with. I used to be a financial crimes investigator, the kind who spent decades chasing people in suits who smiled while they stole. When I finally burned out, I bought peace. Or at least I thought I did. 320 acres just outside a quiet Texas town, open sky cattle fences that actually meant something. I raise Longhorn's rare bloodlines, old stock. I run the ranch like a blend of Old West and low orbit. Drones, smart gates, GPS tags on fence posts. Sounds fancy, but really it just means I like knowing exactly where things stand. And for years, things were simple. My nearest neighbor was about a mile off. You could stand in the south pasture at dusk and hear nothing but insects and wind pushing through cedar. That kind of quiet rewires a man. Then one day construction started beyond my southern fence. Fast. Like someone dropped a suburb out of the sky overnight. New subdivision tidy signs, smiling stock photos of people holding coffee mugs. They marketed it like some kind of nature retreat, shared green spaces, heritage trails, all that glossy nonsense. I laughed at first. There hadn't been a trail there since my granddad shut one down in 1982. Poured concrete into the posts himself. Said no one walks free through working cattle. Then a ranch hand brought me a flyer someone left at the gate. Nice paper. Expensive print. On the back was a map, and right there, highlighted in soft green, was a chunk of my pasture labeled Community Meadow Access. I remember just staring at it, coffee halfway to my mouth. You ever see something so ridiculous it takes a second for your brain to even recognize it as real? That was me. I figured it was a marketing error. Some graphic designer in a cubicle guessing at boundaries. So I shrugged it off. Until the morning 2 sheriff's cruisers rolled up like I was barricaded with hostages. I was out in the pasture running a drone sweep. One of my yearlings had a limp. Sun barely up, dew still sitting low in the grass. Then dust starts rolling in and these cruisers pull right up to an internal gate, hands near their holsters. Hands where we can see them. Nothing wakes you up faster than that on your own land. I held up the controller, told them my name, told them this was my property. They said they got a call from a resident claiming an armed man was threatening joggers near a trailhead. A trailhead. I remember blinking like maybe I misheard them. Then I just sighed and started pulling documents. Deed copies, GPS overlays, live drone feed. I told them I could show them coordinates down to the inch. We walked the fence line together. They saw the markers, the embedded tags, the old concrete posts. By the end of it, both deputies looked embarrassed. One muttered something like, "Someone really screwed up." I almost believed that. 2 days later, they were back. Same cruisers, same dust cloud. New accusation. This time I was allegedly building a barrier on community land and yelling at kids with a firearm. I hadn't even shut off my drill when I saw them pull in. Just leaned on the fence post and waited. And that's when she showed up. You know the type. Sunglasses too big for her face posture, like she thought the ground owed her rent. Perfect hair, perfect tone, perfect certainty. She marched right up to my fence and started talking like she was delivering a ruling. Said my fence violated community visual ordinances. Said it blocked public access to green space. I told her as calmly as I could that it was rotational grazing land, that cows don't care about HOA newsletters. She brushed it off like facts were optional. Said her residents had walked that trail for years. Her subdivision hadn't even existed 6 months. The deputies were still standing there when she claimed I'd threatened her. Claimed I'd flashed a weapon. And that's when I pulled up the drone footage and rewound it in front of everyone. Clear as day, she walked onto my land, stood under a no trespassing sign, pulled out her phone and called it in. You could hear her voice on the recording. Calm, practiced, saying she wasn't sure if the gun was loaded, but I was aggressive. One deputy just started writing immediately. The other went ice cold. That was the moment something shifted for me, not anger, clarity. I'd seen that move before. In fraud cases, there's always a stage where someone stops bending truth and starts manufacturing reality. They repeat a lie enough times, act like it's already real, and hope everyone else adjusts. That night I took the footage layered in maps, posted it online. No theatrics, just documentation. It spread faster than I expected. Thousands of people watching some quiet rancher explain fence lines like it was a crime documentary. I didn't care about attention, but I understood leverage. If someone wanted to rewrite the story, I'd make sure the receipts were louder than the rumors. And that's when things got mean. Letters showed up at the gate, official complaints filed with the county. Maps redrawn like my pasture had magically curved into a public walking trail. They even added a little icon of a bench. A bench, like fantasy needed furniture. I drove straight to the records office with a box of family documents, land grants older than most buildings in town. The clerk flipped through dusty ledgers and found the entry trail decommissioned in 1982 easement terminated at my grandfather's request. She looked at me like she'd seen every scam there was, asked who would even try something like this. I already knew. When you can't take land legally, you try to make the law blurry. After that, I started seeing the pattern. Mailers going out to residents painting me as some hostile squatter. Partners quietly backing away from business deals because no one wants to touch a legal gray zone. It wasn't about fences anymore, it was erosion. Reputational rot. That one hit harder than the police visits. Watching someone try to sand down your life until it looks disposable, that's a different kind of fight. But here's the thing about chasing fraud for a living: lies always leave fingerprints, paper trails, patterns. People get sloppy when they think they're winning. One evening just past sunset, my phone lit up with a gate breach alert. I pulled up the drone feed and saw 3 guys wandering through my pasture with cameras and flashlights. Not lost, performing. I turned on the floodlights and cranked the audio. One of them whispered, "Start recording before he sees us." Another told him to sound scared. They were rehearsing a fake harassment video on my land, like it was a stage set. I didn't even feel anger, just disbelief, the kind that turns into something colder. I locked down the gates, called the sheriff, and waited. When deputies arrived, I played them the audio, the planning, the script, the part where they debated whether to pretend I charged at them. Watching those men get cuffed under my floodlights, that was the first time I felt momentum shift. Not victory, just gravity changing direction. After that, the masks started slipping fast. Emails surfaced. Statements contradicted themselves. And once attorneys got involved, everything accelerated. Lawsuits, discovery, sworn testimony. The truth has a way of moving slow until suddenly it doesn't. The wildest moment, though, wasn't in some dramatic courtroom speech. It was something smaller, petty even. I sold a tiny parcel along the disputed fence line, just enough land to bait them. Real listing, real paperwork. They bought it thinking they'd secured a foothold. What they didn't read was the covenant: agricultural use only, mandatory livestock access, maintenance obligations. They bought a patch of dirt they couldn't use, couldn't build on, and now had to maintain for my cattle. I won't pretend that wasn't satisfying. By the time we got to court, the case file was thicker than a family Bible. Drone footage, land records, sworn statements. The judge didn't have much patience for theatrics. Every time the narrative drifted, we dragged it back with documentation. Then came the emails. Internal messages talking about blurring borders and shaping public perception. Suggesting if they made me look unstable, facts wouldn't matter. That was the real reveal, not the land dispute, the mindset. Power pretending it was reality. When the verdict finally came down, it wasn't loud. No dramatic gavel slam. Just a calm voice ruling in my favor and dismantling months of fiction in a few sentences. Fines, damages, referrals for criminal charges. I remember exhaling like I'd been holding air for a year. And yeah, seeing the architect of it all let out in cuffs didn't feel like revenge. It felt like gravity restoring itself. The ranch felt different after. Quieter somehow. Like tension had weight and it finally lifted. The cattle settled. The nights got still again. Even the town shifted. Folks who used to avoid eye contact started nodding. Strangers shook my hand at the hardware store. Not because I won a case, but because I didn't fold. And that's the part I didn't expect the calls afterward. Other landowners, retirees, people fighting smaller, quieter versions of the same thing, power structures that weren't official but acted like they were, committees pretending to be governments, narratives used like weapons. That's when it hit me. The real lesson wasn't about fences or lawsuits. It was about boundaries. Not the kind you draw on a map, the kind you draw on yourself. The moment you decide whether peace is something you protect or something you surrender just to avoid conflict. Because I'll tell you something most people learn too late. Peace isn't what you get when you avoid fights. Sometimes peace is what you earn by choosing the right one. These days, the ranch looks the same from the road. Same fences, same cattle drifting through the pasture at dusk. But there's a new sign by the gate. Simple wood hand carved. No threats, no warnings, just a quiet reminder that lines still matter. And sometimes I stand there in the evening listening to the wind push through the grass, thinking about how close I came to losing all of it, not because someone was stronger, but because they were louder. So now I'm curious. If someone tried to rewrite the ground under your feet, not with force, but with pressure, paperwork, and perception, would you fight back? Or would you let it go just to keep the peace? I'd really want to hear where you land on that, and whether you've ever faced a moment where holding your ground cost more than walking away.